Picture this. You're in the TSA security line at the airport, shoes off, laptop in the tray, thinking it's just another routine security check. But behind the scenes, something very different is happening. In that exact moment, an enormous amount of your personal information, your identity, your full travel history, where you're going, where you've been, is being collected, stored, and quietly shared with immigration and customs enforcement. No notice, no permission, no meaningful consent. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is happening right now at major airports across the United States. And what you're about to learn will completely change the way you think about airport security. Welcome to Immigration Updates Hub, the channel that brings you critical, up-to-date immigration and travel information that can directly affect your life and your family's future. I'm your host, and today we're unpacking one of the most explosive revelations in modern airport security. A massive TSA data sharing pipeline has been exposed, showing that the Transportation Security Administration is systematically passing passenger information to ICE. And this doesn't just affect a small group, it affects everyone who flies through U.S. airports. Whether you're a U.S. citizen born and raised here, a visa holder studying or working in America, a green card holder building a long-term life in the U.S., or someone planning a trip to the United States, you need to understand exactly what's going on, because your privacy, your rights, and in some cases your physical freedom may be on the line. By the end of this video, you'll know what data is being collected about you, how that data is being used against travelers, and, most importantly, which specific steps you must take right now to protect yourself and your loved ones. Stay with me. The difference between knowing this and ignoring it could be the difference between a smooth trip and a nightmare detention scenario. Let's start with what has privacy advocates, civil rights groups, and millions of travelers outraged. The Transportation Security Administration, the agency we thought existed purely to protect us from terrorism and physical threats on airplanes, has been running a surveillance operation that goes way beyond what most people ever imagined. According to major investigative reports, TSA isn't just screening you for weapons or explosives at the checkpoint. It is collecting a huge volume of extremely sensitive personal data on nearly every passenger who passes through its lines, and then sharing that data directly with immigration and customs enforcement. Most people assume, okay, maybe they're sending names and flight numbers. That's it, right? Wrong. Very wrong. The scale and depth of the data being collected and shared is staggering. It includes your complete flight history, not just the flight you're on today. Every flight you've booked, departure and arrival cities, layover locations, exact travel dates and times. It includes your personal identification details, passport numbers, driver's license information, date of birth, home address, contact information. All of this sits inside interconnected government databases. It also includes your payment and booking behavior, which credit cards you use, what platforms you book through, whether you buy last minute or plan far in advance, whether you prefer one-way tickets or round trips. If you enrolled in trusted traveler programs like TSA PreCheck or Global Entry, you handed over extensive personal history, biographic details, fingerprints, and other biometrics. That information doesn't just sit in a single sealed-off system. It is available to be shared. And it goes even further. Notes from your security screening can be logged. Conversations you had with TSA officers, observations from secondary screening, anything in your behavior or luggage that seemed unusual. All of that can be stored and passed on as well. TSA's stated mission is supposed to be narrow and clear, prevent dangerous individuals and items from getting onto airplanes, and protect passengers from immediate physical threats. That's the trade-off most of us understood and reluctantly accepted when we agreed to go through airport security. But once this data is funneled to ICE, the purpose of that information changes completely. ICE is an immigration enforcement agency. Its job is to investigate, detain, and deport. This means that even if you're taking a purely domestic flight, Miami to Seattle, Dallas to Chicago, New York to Los Angeles, you're not leaving the country, you're not crossing an international border, and yet your information may still end up in immigration enforcement systems. Once it's there, it can be flagged, cross-checked against other databases, analyzed by algorithms looking for patterns, and used as a basis to investigate you, question you, detain you, or even initiate deportation proceedings. And this applies not only to non-citizens, but also to citizens whose data might be misinterpreted or incorrectly flagged. Every single day, around 2 million people go through TSA checkpoints in the US. That's over 700 million passengers per year. That's hundreds of millions of detailed personal profiles being collected, stored, shared across government agencies, and analyzed by automated systems looking for red flags. Many legal and privacy experts describe this as one of the largest domestic surveillance systems in American history, and most people subjected to it have no idea it's happening. Think back to your last airport trip. You waited in line, took off your shoes, put your bags on the belt, walked through the scanner, maybe had a pat-down. And you assumed that when you walked away from the checkpoint, that was the end of it. But in the background, invisible to you, an enormous data pipeline may have just captured your details and pushed them into multiple government systems without your informed consent. So how can the government do this without telling you? Isn't this unconstitutional? The explanation is complicated and deeply concerning. After the September 11, 2001 attacks, Congress passed a series of laws massively expanding government surveillance powers and information sharing between agencies in the name of national security. The Patriot Act is the most famous of these laws, but there are others. Under these broad legal authorities, agencies like TSA and IC often do have statutory permission to collect and share certain categories of data. But here's the critical point. Something can be legal under a statute and still be unconstitutional under the U.S. Constitution. The Fourth Amendment protects people in the U.S. from unreasonable searches and seizures. It generally requires probable cause, a warrant, or at least some individualized suspicion before the government can seriously invade your privacy. Many legal scholars argue that mass TSA-ICE data sharing crosses that line. It happens without proper notice to travelers. It happens without explicit, informed consent. It targets everyone who flies, regardless of any suspicion. It treats all travelers as potential suspects, simply because they chose to get on a plane. Civil rights organizations, including the ACLU, have filed lawsuits challenging these practices as unconstitutional dragnet surveillance, especially harmful to immigrant communities. They argue that it chills people's freedom of movement, discourages lawful travel, and undermines core privacy protections the Constitution is supposed to guarantee. This isn't just some theoretical legal argument. It's already affecting real people in very serious ways. If you're in the US on a visa, even if you followed every rule, any small inconsistency or technical issue in your record can trigger trouble. A minor overstay, a paperwork error, a pending application with unresolved questions, all of these can cause you to be flagged. In many cases, ICE can be alerted the moment you book a ticket or the moment you present yourself at the airport. There have been real situations where people with pending or slightly complicated immigration cases were pulled into secondary inspection, questioned for hours, detained, or even arrested, all because an automated system flagged them at the airport. These weren't people trying to flee or hide. They were traveling for normal reasons, family visits, business trips, emergencies, and got caught in a surveillance net they didn't even know existed. If you're applying for a green card, your travel history can be examined in extreme detail. Officers can see how often you travel, which countries you visit, and whether your trips match the story and timeline in your application. Frequent travel to certain countries, travel patterns that look unusual to an algorithm, or entries and exits that don't align with your forms can all raise serious questions in your case. At your interview, officers can and do use this data to probe inconsistencies, which can lead to delays, heavy questioning, or even denials. If you have undocumented family members, spouse, parents, siblings, children, your travel data can indirectly expose them to risk. When your information is shared and cross-referenced against other databases, it may connect you to specific addresses, associates, or prior encounters that provide new leads in immigration investigations. This has created intense fear in mixed-status families. Even U.S. citizens and green card holders sometimes avoid domestic flights because they're afraid that traveling could somehow shine a spotlight on undocumented loved ones. Then there's the issue of data breaches and misuse. The more agencies that store your sensitive data, the more doors there are for hackers, leaks, and abuse. We've already seen massive breaches at government agencies that exposed social security numbers, financial information, and other personal data. When your information lives in multiple interlinked databases, accessed by countless employees and contractors, the risk of compromise grows dramatically. On top of all that, constant monitoring has a psychological effect. When people feel watched, they change their behavior. They avoid certain trips. They skip visiting particular people or places. They hesitate to fully exercise their legal rights. This is what civil liberties experts call a chilling effect, and it's deeply damaging to a free society. There have already been documented cases of U.S. citizens being detained for hours at airports, missing flights, and facing interrogation because an algorithm wrongly flagged them as a risk. As the data net expands and grows more complex, such mistakes become more common, not less. So what can you actually do to protect yourself and your family in this environment? First, keep your immigration status 100% clean and current. If you're in the U.S. on any kind of visa, know your exact expiration dates and the specific conditions attached to your status. Never allow your status to lapse, even briefly. If there is any issue, past, present, or upcoming, address it immediately before you travel. Do not assume it will be fine. If you have any doubts, speak with a qualified, experienced immigration attorney before you book flights. This is critical, not optional. Second, maintain detailed, organized records of your travel history. Save your boarding passes. Keep clear copies of passport entry and exit stamps. Download and store your I-94 arrival and departure records. Keep any documents that explain the purpose of trips. Create a dedicated physical and digital folder and keep everything in chronological order. If an officer questions your travel, being able to instantly show clear, organized records can make a huge difference in how that interaction goes. Third, think very carefully before enrolling in trusted traveler programs like TSA PreCheck or Global Entry. Yes, they are convenient and save time. But in exchange, you provide extensive personal information and biometric data and consent to intensive background checks. That data is stored, shared, and potentially used by multiple agencies, including immigration enforcement. You must weigh the convenience of shorter lines against the added privacy risk and exposure based on your specific situation. Fourth, know your rights and be prepared to use them calmly and firmly. Whether you're a citizen or not, if you are physically in the U.S., you have certain constitutional protections. If you are stopped or questioned, you have the right to remain silent, the right to request an attorney before answering questions, and the right not to sign documents you don't understand. Stay calm and respectful, but be firm. You can say, "I choose to remain silent, and I would like to speak to my attorney," or "I do not consent to any searches beyond what is required for security screening," or "I do not want to answer questions without my lawyer present." Knowing these phrases and being ready to use them can protect your legal position and prevent situations from escalating. Fifth, treat social media as public evidence. Immigration authorities increasingly review social media in visa applications, extensions, green card and citizenship cases, and enforcement investigations. If your posts contradict the stated purpose of your visa, show you working when you're not authorized, reveal relationships or travel you didn't disclose, or contain statements that raise security or fraud concerns, they can be used against you. Assume that anything you post publicly can and will be seen, downloaded, and stored by immigration officials. There are real cases where people have lost visas, had green cards denied, or faced removal proceedings largely because of what officers found on social media. Thank you so much for watching Immigration Updates Hub. If this video helped you understand what's really happening with TSA, ICE, and your travel data, please hit the like button. It helps this information reach more people who urgently need it. Share this video with anyone who travels to or within the United States. U.S. citizens, visa holders, green card applicants, and friends or family planning to visit. This information could literally save someone from a traumatic airport detention or even prevent a deportation. Make sure you subscribe to Immigration Updates Hub so you don't miss future updates on immigration policy changes, travel regulations, visa news, and strategies to protect your rights. Turn on the notification bell so you're alerted as soon as we publish new videos. In a fast-changing legal environment, staying informed can make all the difference. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think about TSA ICE data sharing, or ask any questions about visas, travel history, or airport encounters. Remember, knowledge is power. Staying informed keeps you safer. Understanding your rights helps protect your freedom. This is Immigration Updates Hub, and I'll see you in the next video.